I caught my girlfriend being plowed by my father in my own kitchen. They both called my phone apologizing and begging me not to say anything to anyone. But I'm just worried about how to tell my mother. I am 22, and I have been with my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend Kate, 21, for just shy of 3 years. Our relationship throughout the 3 years has been amazing. She had always been kind and supportive and very open and honest with me. We had dates often. Our love-making life was great. We had very few arguments, but when we did get into a disagreement, we managed to communicate and come to an understanding before long. I believed our relationship to be healthy and loving, but apparently, I was wrong. About a week ago, I had started to notice that Kate was becoming very touchy about me being on or around her phone. This was odd to me because not only had she always let me use her phone to make calls if mine was flat or I didn't have immediate access to mine, but she had also downloaded games for me to play on her phone so she could distract me when she wanted to watch her shows. Kate began snapping at me for asking to borrow her phone or snatching it out of my hand if I was so much as moving it away from the edge of the counter so it wouldn't fall, and whenever I questioned her behavior, she brushed it off and explained she was just in a bad mood. Her constant dismissal of my noticeable confusion began to annoy me, so I asked her if she was hiding anything from me, which led to an argument about her saying I was accusing her of infidelity and not trusting her, and began trying to get physical with me, in which case I shut the argument down and told her to sleep in the guest bedroom. She was very angry about it, but I told her we would talk about it in the morning. When we did talk about it after, she apologized for her behavior and gave me her phone. I told her I trusted her and I didn't need to go through it. And to be frank, I did trust her, and I believed her outburst to be due to the ongoing stress at work, which was clearly stupid of me. The next day, I noticed she had gotten a missed call from my father. I had never known my father to like Kate or even have her contact at that. In fact, I was convinced they both disliked each other. At any and every family event, they would often argue or make snarky remarks at one another until we would have to leave due to the tense atmosphere they had created, so I decided to ask Kate why my father had called her. She physically froze and mumbled an excuse about it being my birthday soon, and he had planned something, but my father and I were never very close, so I didn't understand why he would, but I played it off and decided to go about my day. Then the following night, I had texted her explaining that I had a late shift and I would be back around 1 a.m. But we ended up being dismissed early due to an incident regarding our manager and a few staff, and so I was heading home by 7 p.m. I tried calling her, but she had her phone off, so I assumed it had gone flat or she had turned it off, which she does often at home. When I made it home, I noticed my father's car 2 houses down from ours, and so I tried calling him, but his phone was also turned off, which I found odd because my mother likes his phone to be on so she can call him when she needs him. She's handicapped. I assumed my mother was with him, so I opened the door quietly to surprise her, as I haven't seen her in a while, and I was met with the sight of my girlfriend bent over the kitchen counter with my father behind her. They both froze and started profusely yelling and telling me it wasn't what it looked like and that they could explain, but I shut and locked the door from the outside, deadbolt, and made my way to a friend's house. Since then, they've both been blowing up my phone, apologizing and begging me not to say anything to anyone, and quite frankly, I'm just disgusted. Disgusted in my father, who is turning 60 next month and has my mother to take care of, and disgusted in Kate, who is getting railed by my father for who knows how long. I honestly just want to throw up and set them both on fire. But I'm most worried about how my mother will take this situation, as she's very dependent on my father and adores him. How should I go about this? I don't need closure or to confront them. I don't want to know how their gross relationship started or how long it's been going on for. I just need advice on how to approach the situation without causing a bigger mess than there is. Any advice is welcome. Thank you for reading. Update number 1. As per someone's advice, I asked my mother to lunch, and after some small talk, informed her of the situation. She was understandably upset and in denial about the situation, as my father had spoken to her prior about me still holding a grudge, a story for another time, and that I would be likely to come up with a lie to turn her against him for revenge. But after showing her the messages they had sent me afterward, she was distraught and visibly angry about the ordeal. I then asked her if she would be comfortable with me sending an email to our relevant family members and Kate's parents and siblings, and while she was a little reluctant about it, she had said she didn't want the backlash from his family for leaving him. I then did just that. I sent an email explaining the situation and that my mother and I would be going no contact with both Kate and my father and low contact with anyone who gave either of us any grief for our decision. Now she is staying with her older sister while I'm with a close mate until we can figure out a stable living situation for us both. Update number 2. After the email was sent, there was radio silence for a day or two before both my mother and I were bombarded with a mix of messages that I'll just summarize in small paragraphs. Kate's parents were evidently enraged that I accused their daughter of such a thing, and that they would be suing me for defamation on their daughter's behalf. I then took the liberty of sending them the screenshots from both Kate's and my father's messages, and they left me on scene for a couple days before replying to me and informing me that while they wouldn't sue me, they would appreciate if I kept the situation under wraps. My father was the first to message my mother, attempting to convince her that I staged the messages and that I was being petty and lying. And when she wouldn't believe him, he accused her of cheating on him and trying to find a way out of their marriage, which evidently isn't possible for my mother as she has trouble getting from place to place on her own. He then apologized and told her he was just frustrated and asked to see her, and when she declined, he again accused her of cheating and staying with her lover while abandoning him. My maternal grandparents and paternal grandparents had very different messages and not in the way I thought they would. My paternal grandparents apologized for his behavior and told my mother that if she needed support in the future, they were available and informed her they would be disowning and going no contact with my father. My maternal grandparents, however, despite being the people that raised her, told her that due to her injury and not being able to fulfill the husband's needs, it was only right of him to look elsewhere for fulfillment, and while they understood that it was wrong because it was my partner, she was available for him and my mother should forgive him and move on. They also made a point to state that my mother needs my father more than he needs her. Kate's 2 older sisters reached out and thanked me for telling them and informed us that if we, my mother and I, needed any assistance in the future in regards to my mother's health, as one is an elderly caretaker and the other is a physiotherapist, that they were willing to help. These aren't all the messages, but they're the relevant ones. My mother and I gave ourselves a few days to get through all the messages and phone calls and block my maternal grandparents as well as my father. My mother didn't have him blocked. I contacted my landlord and real estate agent and informed them briefly of the situation, and I was no longer living on the premises and that I would like to have my name taken off the lease. Luckily, our lease was being renewed, and the next day, they contacted Kate to inform her that I had taken my name off the lease for the following month, and in the next week, if she was unable to take on my portion of rent, she would have 3 months to vacate the property. I don't know how she reacted, but I could tell it wasn't overly ecstatic as her parents contacted me and asked if, despite everything, I would be willing to pay for her rent just for his month because she doesn't have the money for it at the moment. Obviously, I declined and told them that I no longer have anything to do with her anymore. They then informed me she was pregnant with my child and needed assistance from the father of her baby, and this would be a last goodbye. I then laughed and told them I most definitely wasn't the father of that baby. If she was pregnant and if she needed assistance from her baby daddy to contact my father, then I hung up and blocked them. On a brighter note, my mother and I have just put a down payment on a house together and are looking into hiring a caregiver to help my mother for when I have work or trips out of state. My father has attempted to call both of us from multiple phone numbers and had numerous family members try to persuade my mother into meeting up with him to chat. And as a result, my mother and I have gotten a new phone number to avoid his mess. I also happened to hear from a mate that Kate is trying to hire a lawyer so she can get child support money from me, but apparently, because she has no proof that I'm the father and she refuses to take a DNA test of the baby, she hasn't had any luck. Edit 1. I forgot to mention it above as I didn't see it as important when writing this, but Kate is apparently 5 weeks pregnant. We haven't been intimate for just under 2 months, so the baby is unlikely to be mine. If it is, I will pay child support, but I want proof before I pay her money for a baby that may or may not be mine. Edit 2. Just to clarify, Kate and I weren't having issues during the time we weren't intimate. I was too tired to initiate due to work commitments, and at the time I assumed she was as well, but it's likely her needs were met by either my father or other parties. Edit 3. Something else I forgot to mention. Yes, I did get in test for STIs and UTIs and any sort of infections I may not be aware of, and all tests came back negative, so I'm in the clear in that sense. Update number 3. Hi all. I apologize for taking so long to update. A lot has happened over the past almost year, but to cut a long story short, my mother has her own house now that I pay for. She no longer has contact with my father and has officially divorced him, and she has a full-time career. As for Kate, she was in fact pregnant, but fortunately it wasn't mine or my father's for that matter. Unfortunately, she lost the baby in her second trimester and of course blamed me for the stress I put on her, but I no longer have contact with her either. My father has been cut off by his family and friends and fired from his place of work as apparently he wasn't just effing my ex, but had a previous affair with one of his colleagues' partners. A big thank you to everyone who messaged and commented. You guys were a huge support. Best comments. Glad to hear it, man. Keep looking after yourself and your mother, you both need it. What did she say to you outside of blaming you for the miscarriage? Did she say sorry for the baby not being yours? What has your father said to you since then? She actually didn't plan on telling me or my father that the baby wasn't related to either of us. Her mother reached out to me to inform me of the situation and that Kate had planned on telling me that the baby was mine to demand child support. She did in fact reach out the next day to try and tell me the baby was mine with some poorly forged email, to which I told her her mother already told me that it wasn't mine or my father's, and she cracked it, to which I blocked her number. I'm not sure if her mother faced any backlash for that. Then after a 2 or 3 months or so, she messaged me on her mother's number a fat long paragraph about how she lost the baby and how it was all my fault for stressing her out and not stepping up and being a decent human being. I haven't heard much from my father. My mother, on the other hand, has heard a lot about him from relatives and a few wives of his colleagues that she's still friends with or check in on her because of her health. The last message he sent was some bullshit about how it wasn't his fault. Kate seduced him, blah blah, but he's blocked as well, and as far as I know his life is going to shit.